Whenever you're ready.
Hey, good evening, live stream fans, Galleon area folks. This is Tom O'Leary, and we're fortunate tonight, I mean that sincerely, to have one of the candidates for Ohio Senate that is going to spend a little bit of time talking about her interest in our area, her interest in why she's running for Ohio Senate. And so Melissa Ackison is here tonight. We're going to reach out to the other two candidates. One's a Democrat and is unchallenged in the primary, and the other one is Melissa's opponent, to see if they'll come on and do this. I think in an era where you don't have a local newspaper, as our viewers have seen, it's really hard to get information out. And I think this is a nice. We're doing this at about 8 o'clock or something like that, or 7:30 or something like that, on a Thursday night. So Melissa's been doing events all day and then agreed to come over here to Galleon. Live in Union County, correct?
I live in Union County, Marysville, Ohio. Small 12-acre. I feel like I should be looking back and forth.
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
I live on a small 12-acre farm. We have 4 sons together, but we have 2 little ones at home. So a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old who are still at home. Raise our own beef and our own chickens. Take any animal in that finds its way to our house. You know, that's what we do.
So you have 2 other kids, I think I know.
Yes.
I had a chance to moderate candidates night.
Yep.
That Melissa showed up and her opponent didn't, but we won't spend all night digging with side digs. Oh well, never mind. We might. But
We
go
may.
ahead. We may.
I
So you have
may.
a couple other. You have 4 sons.
We have 4 sons. So
Right.
we have Nicholas. He's the oldest. He's 24.
Yeah.
Out of the house, married. He's a big boy now. And then we have Nathan. He's 22. He's the one who's in the military, in the U.S. Army, has a lovely girlfriend.
That's neat.
Hopefully he gets married and starts popping out. We'd like grandkids at some point.
Grandkids.
And then I have Royce, who's 10 years old, and Cross, the one I'm always talking about, who's 3, who's always into something.
Yeah, they're the 2 fellas that are in the notorious picture with President Trump.
Yes.
You and your husband. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, anyways, that's kind of neat. I'm so tempted, because we have 4 boys, to talk about the notion of once they're raised, but you don't ever keep on helping and stuff. But we won't sidetrack. One thing that's most fascinating, before we get into issues and kind of why you're running, is seems to me it's like what did Melissa Ackison do to upset, one might say piss off the establishment? I mean, I've never seen the hatefulness that has been generated. I know one thing: your opponent doesn't like you. I don't know what he stands for, but I mean, the question is, what did you do to upset the powers that be?
We have to understand I'm running against one of the wealthiest members of the General Assembly. He's a huge funder of the Republican establishment. The fact that I don't have to negotiate people's rights away, our constitutional rights away, and that I've been successful with my fundraising efforts to effectively compete, they've got a problem now. They have a candidate who's well-spoken, who speaks to the people, who speaks to the issues, and who isn't controlled by the establishment or the special interests. So that's going to create the dynamics for a very brutal primary. And you ask, what did I do wrong? Well, it's simple. I had the nerve to do more than just live under the failed policies in the state of Ohio. I had the nerve to run for office. I had the nerve to go up against them. So I'm still standing. You know, this has been dubbed as the ugliest primary in the history of Ohio races and the most brutal. I would say it's the most dangerous because you have a candidate who's going to win this thing who isn't funded by the special interest. That's a problem.
Yeah, that. So I get the answer. It's kind of funny, the people who would watch this, who do watch this, except the new Ackison fans who will pick this up on the internet.
Yes, they will.
But I have earned a reputation as being controversial for 40 years now. So I don't. So my sympathies. Sort of I align like kindred spirits with somebody who doesn't need permission to run for office.
But I have to tell you, Tom,
Yeah.
I did meet with, even though I'm not a politically correct candidate, I went through the protocols. I met with Chairwoman Timken on multiple occasions.
Right.
I met with Dave Berg. I did the appropriate political, I didn't ask for their permission. I let them know what I was going to do.
Right.
I told them where I was in my fundraising efforts, and then I had guarantees and assurances, both in writing and in person, that they wouldn't get involved in this primary. Nobody ever expected me to be polling where I am, to be doing what
Yeah.
I've done, and so now everyone's in scramble mode.
Yeah, it's funny, we run nonpartisan here. We won't get into galleon history again. The people who view this know how we got to this point with the mayor. But been a Republican since the early '80s as elected official. I've never seen that. There's been contested primaries for state house seats, generally not for congressional seats, but for state house seats, and I've never seen the endorsement. I thought that's pretty unprecedented that the Republican Party would endorse, in this case, your opponent.
Well, it shouldn't.
So what'd you think of that?
Well,
did you get a chance?
Here's the story.
Did
Let
they
me tell
interview
you.
both of you and then make an endorsement?
Let me tell you.
Okay.
So let's get into it.
All right.
So initially I met with them. I had assurances that they would not get involved in the primary. My
Right.
donors, who are donor class of the establishment, they wanted to make sure that the Ohio Republican Party didn't get involved.
Yeah.
They lied. They went back on their word. They had the endorsement meeting. So I actually showed up that day. I went into the belly of the beast in downtown Columbus to all of the Central Committee members and to Chairwoman Timken. When I arrived that night, or that morning, there were two plainclothes men who I could clearly tell they were some kind of law enforcement or Secret Service. And so I walk in the room and one of the guys says, Ackison. He goes, go out in the hall, go out in the hall. So I go out in the hall and he says, do you know why we're here today? And I said, I certainly hope it's to support me. He goes, I know you. I'm on your Facebook. I love, we support the work you do. We were called here because you had put messages on your Facebook telling people to storm the castle, that it was a hostile takeover of our republic, that the election was going to be rigged. He said, so when we came in that morning, I don't know if it was the local branch of the FBI, but he says, we opened up a file, and I'm like, I know that woman. She's a patriot. She loves this country.
So somebody hacked your site, or did that?
No, I've made it public. I'm not hiding anything.
Oh, okay.
It is a hostile takeover of our republic. It's ours. They don't own it.
Oh, I agree with all of that. Yeah, it's kind of funny. There's no mistaking the plainclothes state highway patrolmen when you see them, and they are. I mean, they gotta be the best.
They are the best.
The people that are around protecting the people in state government. Well, let's keep going down that. I think it's important that you win, okay? Why you get up every morning, work as hard as you can to accomplish it. So you accomplish that. What's the plan for rebuilding bridges with the other 31 members of the House?
Well,
excuse me, of the Senate.
I would say that you have some
32 members. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say that you have some members of the Senate who are marching in line to the beat of the drum that's being played for them right now. I think most people who know me personally, senators who are also constitutional conservatives, they're excited about the opportunity of me being in there, not only as a woman with a backbone, but as someone who has the same core beliefs that they do. So they know they're going to have a partner in me. I would ask them, what is their plan to build relationships back with me before, I'm not, this is an indictment of against the Republican Party. Ohio leads the charge in the opiate epidemic. We lead the charge in human sex trafficking. We are the fourth most overregulated in the nation, and that's with Republican leadership at the helm. This is an issue. Ohio is not performing at the best that we can be.
Right.
Our folks at the local level are frustrated. I think, the question should rather be to them. I've already demonstrated after I get elected the type of heat that I bring. I think they need to ask themselves, what do we need to do to mend the relationships with her? I'm here to get a job done and to represent the people. And if anybody stands in my way, we'll have to expose those individuals. Right. These people deserve representation.
Okay, well, great answer. Excellent question. Great answer. Now, let's get into a couple subject matter because it is real important. You go down there, and we would in Crawford County. We wouldn't know whether or not our state senator had a good relationship with his colleagues or not. We would have no clue about that. And so that's one of the issues that I speak, I believe, for the Galleon area. I think you would hear it around Crawford County, is the visibility or the absence, really, of Senator Burke. So convince us the Senator Ackison would be somebody that would know us and we'd know you.
Well, there's a reason why we're performing so well in Crawford County. This largely is an area that's ignored by politicians because they dismiss and count you out based on your size. They don't believe that they have any loyalty or any accountability to you.
Right.
And I'm a little bit different. My money comes from people in this area. My support comes from people in this area, just as it does throughout the district. So my accountability is to the people. Just as I expect my employees to report back to me and to let me know what roadblocks they have and why they aren't able to get done what I've asked of them, you're going to need to know from me, Melissa, we elected you, you're in the state. This is an open dialogue that needs to continue. The reason you don't see Dave Burke in your community, have you written a check to Dave Burke?
Oh, no, I don't. I'm too cheap, man.
That's why these guys.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
They go to the events where they're funded because the money is what helps you get elected. Nobody wants to live through what I've lived through over the past 13 months. You drag your children through it. They're picked on at school. Your business is that's open to being attacked. Nobody believes anymore that our republic is worth fighting for. I happen to believe that it is.
Yeah, it's really crappy that from my point of view, the way the campaign has been going, because the influence of, if you will, money. Your campaign, if you hadn't run for U.S. Senate and had some name recognition and people had met you in that process, the folks would be almost, I love the word, scared. I'd be scared to talk to her.
Yeah. People
are afraid that they're laughing a little bit before we start. It's like whether you're going to come in here with machine guns and like we need a metal detector or something. I've never seen someone caricatured so much. And I don't know if that's like they're afraid of you. It's got to be part of it. They don't have anything to sell.
Yeah.
Or if that's like, I don't know, I don't quite get it. I'm tempted to, like, I wouldn't want to sell cars in Findlay or Tiffin, my whole life might be like put into question. So I don't know, I really don't, I don't understand it and don't appreciate the kind of, I'm going to run for office by making my opponent out a villain.
Well, I
don't understand that approach, and I really feel like we, in this county, we certainly deserve more, and that's kind of where the lack of visibility and don't even know what the other Republican is for. Actually, that's not true. He's for the same things you are. It's almost like you had the same issues, people. So you're tapped into the same stuff.
We're not, though.
Oh, okay, well, good. Then,
we're not. So there's two distinct differences, and there's a reason why I showed up for your event last week or the week before. A constitutional conservative funded by the people, a constitutional conservative Republican funded by the people, is not the same as a John Kasich hack establishment puppet funded by the special interest. You don't get to call yourself a conservative, and I don't give a damn who endorses you. You don't get to call yourself a conservative, by saying, I'm a conservative. No, you're not. What have you done for the cause? You haven't stood for constitutional carry. You didn't sponsor or co-sponsor that bill. You never co-sponsored or sponsored an abolition of abortion bill. You never, not even a pro-life bill has the man co-sponsored. You've never stood for a stand your ground bill. You've never given your position on the natural family. You don't get to just call yourself something because it helps you win elections and then do everything you can to discredit me. The way that you feel about those attack ads, about the mailers, about the radio, about the website that they purchased bearing my name, MelissaAckison.com.
I like that one.
It makes you mad. You think it's wrong. It makes the people. I just came out of a packed house. It made those people mad.
Yeah.
They want to know what you're going to do for them, and I speak to the issues. I always have. I always will. And so when you've got nothing to sell, you're going to try to take down the product that everyone loves.
Well, what might get attacked, because I think that I heard one of our coworkers, who I know from having conversations with her, Matt might attack too, and we'll have to fight him off on the confused on the issue of pro-life.
Yes.
I see in the mailers endorsements from Right to Life or something, but I also know I'd read or heard that you've been endorsed. What's the like?
So this is the way
like,
that it
what's
works.
the score among those pro-life? Because that's the part of Republican constituency you're both trying to nail down. So what's
So there's two different groups of people here. First of all, let's segment this and let's talk about the fact that Roe versus Wade is unconstitutional by design. Courts make opinions, they don't make laws. The legislature does. We are under no obligation to even allow Planned Parenthoods to be operating anywhere in the state of Ohio.
Got it.
A Republican will introduce a bill to regulate baby death. That's what those bills are, and they fundraise off of it, and they build off the emotional hype of certain bills. An abolitionist, someone who does not want to regulate abortion but wants it ended from happening in the state, we say differently, okay? So when you see that on the iVoter guide, I'm rated as the most conservative, with Ohio Value Voters, I am the endorsed candidate for this race. I received all of the endorsements from the most staunch conservative groups. That's because we're not interested in bowing down and doing regulation deals. We are for the abolition. When slavery ended, we didn't say please, 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 and we didn't use regulatory means. We had a bloody war to abolish slavery. So that's the difference between a constitutional conservative and an establishment Republican.
okay? I got it.
See? Clear.
I got it. I'm okay with that. I mean, I think, I think about the position that Mr. Schwartz will likely take, because I don't know the guy. I'd like to meet him at some point. I think he might have been scouting at that candidates night the other day. There was a guy who I knew everybody but this one fella. But in any event,
he wasn't there.
Okay, he wasn't
there. He did an event at your library. That's
that's right. That's
he
right.
did an event
yeah,
there.
There was. Okay, so let's go to a couple other issues before we wrap up. One of the issues that I'm passionate about, and I think I know in this county we need to do a better job handling it. That falls from, so you want all these babies born, bringing them to full term. That's super important. Okay, has to be a legitimate alternative if the baby's born. Oftentimes Republicans get wrapped, I think legitimately, with like, well then where are you on the social welfare programs that are necessary? So could we count on you to be big on funding kinship care?
Yes.
That there's legitimate support of counties to handle the foster care and rehabilitation and reuniting.
Sure.
I know for sure that the state has left the counties to their own devices, their own resources, and that's resulted in real uneven. So what can you say? All right, so the babies are born. We win. No more abortion.
Yeah.
Are you going to take care of these kids?
Yeah, well, so why are we pumping the amount of money into organizations that perform abortions versus rerouting that money into pregnancy care centers that have a continuum of care so mother and baby can be successful? I'm not anti-assistance, okay? What I am anti is creating environments where you are in a better position to stifle your work hours to receive subsidies versus working and being self-sustainable. So when we talk about the protection of a mother, the protection of baby, there is certainly much we can do around making adoption much easier, to where we can talk about. My husband and I considered adoption before having children. The expense that goes into domestic adoption, it is incredibly, it's pathetic. And in the legislature, there's things that we can do to address those issues. These are wanted children. Perhaps not in the circumstances they were born into with those parents, but we've got to start thinking and looking at things differently. How many politicians do you hear talking about adoption and the critical things we should be doing and rerouting? I think anyone from the pro-life community, Republican or otherwise,
Right.
would absolutely agree to the funding necessary to take care of these children instead of kill these children.
Yeah, it's real. I think it goes back to what you're saying about fundraising. They have no voice.
None.
If the parents don't have any voice, one thing that I know from my experience in working over the years in this is that there's a fine balance between snatching and adopting out kids and giving parents a chance to pull their shit back together.
Yeah.
And that is something that is, I think it's important to sort of probe away at that and for counties to get better at it. But when counties are relatively on their own to fund it, it results in real uneven conditions. And I hope the legislature, and if you become senator, we can talk more about that.
I have to say something? Well, let's talk about foster care, because I have a very strong following of foster parents who have lost children from their care when they were in environments where they should have been left.
Right.
The liberal court systems, the CPS system currently is absolutely being weaponized at various levels.
Right.
The foster care systems, the state of Ohio is one of the most underfunded. Throwing more dollars at a non-working problem isn't the way to fix something. Going in and looking at the problem and making sure you're doing things effectively.
Right.
That's my background. I was a human resource professional in the private sector. We didn't continue to throw more dollars at misfunctioning facilities. We looked at what needed to be rectified, we fixed those issues, and then we did what we needed to do. That's happening in government right now. To be the fourth most overregulated state in the United States, that shows you we have duplicate services, a ridiculous amount of compliance, throwing more people and more money at a problem. Same with school systems. That's not what the remedy is going to be.
Yeah, it's cop out central, and I know there's nothing about getting to know you that you would say you would cop out on that issue.
Never.
But it's really everyone is for helping adoption. They don't say it much, but people who say it, and then foster kids, and then when the rubber meets the road or whatever, man, it's just shameful how,
because there's no money in it.
How much cop out. And that's a voice that it needs to be heard. What else we got? We're gonna wrap up here in a minute because you got to go home and be a mom for a little bit. Reintroduce yourself to kids. What things are important for people in this county to know about the next month and the rendezvous with the voting booth on St. Patrick's Day?
I would tell people that if they're looking for a candidate who will always have their back, who will never let them down, who will go into the fires and the pits of hell for them and still stand alone on issues that mean something to us, I'm your woman. I've never let you down on any public debates, even when I'm standing in a room alone. I've never missed anything that I've been invited to. I've campaigned for 13 months of my life getting to know the folks in this district. There's a lot of opportunity and a lot of things that we could be doing to uplift communities, and we're not doing them. If they want business as usual, you vote for my opponent. You vote for a man who sits behind a computer and plays games attacking a woman and a military mom of 4 sons who's made a life for herself. If you want a warrior for the conservative cause and the voice, you would vote Melissa Ackison. The contrast is so stark between my opponent and I that it's sickening. And that's why he's been advised by strategists, don't stand in the room with her. Even physically speaking, there's a confidence that's just not within him.
Yeah, Andrew Carter. I'm going to make 2 more comments and then we'll be done. Matt's falling asleep out there, so I was picking him up. He's the reporter that did that story down in Union County, and he also was there in Bucyrus the night we were reintroduced to each other. And the picture of your opponent speaking and the look on your face in the back, that's really awesome. Now, a little smirky, but it was really an awesome picture, and I complimented him because it was like the look on your face was assured and had kind of I don't sort of believe this stuff. So it was a good article, and I don't know, I'm really interested in getting more information out. I'm glad you're in Galleon. I look forward, we're gonna try to contact the two other people in the race, try to get that out.
I have already reached out to Craig, just so you know, my
Yeah.
Democratic opponent, and said I would like to set up debates.
Yeah.
I recognize this is a gerrymandered district. I will win the district, but I want to give you the race that I
Yeah.
didn't get. Let's do it. I'm confident in my positions. I hope you're confident in yours.
Yeah, you know what's funny? Two things. And the one's a throwaway because he's getting beat up. I read a lot of papers in the morning before the sun comes up. And I can't believe the crap the plain dealer is giving our Congressman Jordan. It's like, you talk about gerrymandered district. I can't even a Warshak of how that thing's set up. But I guess I was,
It's not fair. I'm a Republican who will be your next senator, and I'm
Yeah.
telling you that gerrymandered districts that allow for primaries to not happen and general elections to not be fair,
Yeah.
it's not okay for the people.
no, I agree with you on that. Okay, so you said you're a human resource professional.
Yes.
So here's the bogus, I love this stuff.
Well, I'm a business owner, but I was an HR
Okay, so
professional.
we never do. We have 100 employees, and
Yeah.
I don't get to hire many people. But I love the years when I got to interview a lot of people, and so I'm fancy myself as having all these neat questions. And so, I was talking about this through the week, so you're constitutional conservative. So I got to ask you, what is your least favorite amendment to the Constitution? Because I've got one, and so what is that? What is your least
My
favorite?
least favorite?
If you were made like queen for a day, and you
My-
can't pick, I'll win the primary
My
or the
least
general election.
favorite.
That doesn't count.
I mean, any modification to the Constitution is concerning for me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't
here's
know.
mine.
That's a
Here's
tough-
mine. You got you got to go all the way back to Marysville.
Yeah.
Here's something to think about. You can practice like First Amendment is, and
Yeah.
like a Catholic
I
school
have
kid,
my little
go through.
Constitution book too that
Okay,
we
so
carry everywhere.
mine is the direct vote for senators, and I've known Sherrod for a long time. I consider him a friend.
Sherrod?
Yeah, man. I don't get pissed at me.
Why do you have a problem with the direct vote for senators? Why is that? You want
Well,
it to
he
be
never
an
would have
elect-
been senator.
good because
He
yours.
never would have been senator. The Ohio Senate never would have picked Sherrod Brown to go to Washington. So that's of the I like women's right to vote. I didn't think much of the Volstead Act.
but what-
That's the Thirsty Act. And then because the direct vote for Senate really distorts the U.S. Constitution, it's the first step in turning the states into agents of the federal government and flip things on its head. So the income tax, all that stuff happened. So Portman is our Senator Portman is the kind of guy who could get nominated and get elected by the Ohio Senate. But they never would have picked Sherrod Brown. Harry Michel was when he the last? Yeah, Harry Michel. Nobody remembers him. He was
So
the
what do you
last
want? Do you
Democrat Senate. I think that when the state legislatures picked the U.S. senators, Washington was slightly more functional, and I think that and so that's my least favorite. I think it did nothing to help the country, and it reduced the uniqueness of the U.S. Senate and made it too democratic.
Really?
Yeah, Democrat. Yeah. So think about that. It's and next time I see you, you can tell me I'm full of it. Won't be the first, probably, in that day. But I think there are, some people when you have that conversation, they would talk about, the one that. Like the Roosevelt, I don't know the numbers very well, but the Roosevelt Amendment can only be
I don't know
in there twice. You can only run twice, and then you're disqualified. That term limit amendment.
Yeah.
But anyways, I don't even know. That's not a good way to end it. We won't end it on that. But I think that is because prior to that amendment, the seat you're running for would have the direct vote on who would become the next U.S. senator. It's kind of interesting how that happens. Okay, let's talk about choice. I know the other day, school choice.
Mm-hmm.
I know super controversial and pretty complex, hard to reduce. But the way to ask the question is, who's in charge of your child's education?
Well,
You and your husband, or the public school that you happen to live in?
well, it would,
So that's a loaded, unfair
yeah, but here's
question,
the deal
but
with
go
school
ahead.
funding.
Yeah.
Why are we not dealing with DeRolf versus state? That's number one.
Yeah.
And how we are funding our schools in the first place.
Right.
The way that we fund the schools through the property taxes, it has already been decided that this is an unconstitutional way
Right.
to fund the schools. With Ed Choice, I'm 100% supportive of the voucher program, but not in the way that it's being determined right now.
Right.
I think it offers an unfair advantage to rural children, and there's so much emphasis in the urban communities. I'm not comfortable with the way.
Do you mean disadvantage to rural or?
Yes, there's a
yeah, I agree.
disadvantage. There's
Yeah.
a disadvantage to the rural communities where
Because we were going to delete this whole damn show if no, I'm kidding.
No, I mean,
Go ahead.
truly there is. And so, but to me, there's a bill that was just introduced, I believe it was
Yeah.
House Bill 309. And people keep saying, well, are you happy? This is where we're talking about school funding and school choice. And I said, I guess I won't be happy until we talk about DeRolf versus state, which is that we've been, I mean, this was back in the 90s that this decision
for sure.
was
Yeah.
made.
What I see here is there are fewer levies, and that although they haven't formally addressed it, the amount of money that comes in
Yeah.
from the state into this county, and I know it's different in other counties, the per pupil, but the schools
It's like 6,000. I have the
right,
exact figures.
the schools in this county are less concerned about the property tax as getting the state tax. It's interesting on school choice. Couple things. This is a chance for you to. But when you talk about it, everybody's okay with open enrollment, but nobody wants school choice to be opened up to non-public schools. What happens in open enrollment is the lesser performing, lower income schools in this county are, I think, rated by a couple of other schools who have a significant income that comes from the students from the neighboring districts. So the current system, a lot of people want to protect the open enrollment. That is creating inequities in the classroom. So anyways, I'm really happy to hear that.
Do you know about the Fair Funding Act? Senator Brenner have you paid any attention to this?
Yeah, pay attention. I don't know by that, but go ahead.
Addressing the same thing that you're talking about, that you and I are talking about, and many people believe that it was too far right of a bill, and that it was at a disadvantage. And I said, yeah, but the way that we're doing things right now, the funding's not working. The poor performing schools are still the poor performing schools.
Right.
They're still churning out the same results. And it's the Fair Funding Act. Look at this, because it's really incredible, but there's no other champions behind this bill to talk about this.
Yeah, they've got to get that up, and I'm away from. I think it's the 300% puts you a family of four at 78. There's one at 200, and there's talk about 300. 200%. And my concern about that is it turns the voucher program into a program for only poor people.
Yeah, and that's where it becomes a problem. And the other good performing, so take Olentangy for an example. That's in his district. It is a wealthier. No one's looking at the facts of what's happening right now. These kids are omitted from that, and it's not fair. It's not someone's fault that they worked hard and wanted to do well and move their children to a district. I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, I think it's super.
The money should follow the child wherever.
Yeah, I really agree with that.
Yeah.
And how you account for, because in this area, if you lose the Catholic education, people who know it's like, oh my God, will he ever stop on that? No, probably not. But that's the only alternative we have, that and homeschooling.
Yeah.
And so it's particularly important, I think, in the rural parts of your district. Because you've got Marysville, you got that part, that's like a metro district, a big suburban district. It's kind of a complicated district. And then you've got all this rural area in between. The rural schools many of them aren't performing well. And I think it's really the House version that Speaker Householder says, performance is not going to be part of this. Well, it's not. So what is the accountability? Well, it's interesting. I have a daughter-in-law who's in Columbus tonight with a bunch of other advocates talking to a Senate subcommittee. So
what about education?
About school choice. I think it's the last night that the Senate has hearings. So they're all the buses of crazy Catholic moms are down there. So,
Well, there are
my
some.
God, I hope they don't get arrested, folks. That have my daughter-in-law on the front page of our paper, and it'd be really embarrassing. But
Right
no,
now, with
that's-
some of the private schools, this is how, I mean, you take the voucher program away and you
Right.
start, they're going to lose. I mean, these are how many of those schools are being funded right now. I'm sure you know that
Oh,
already.
absolutely. That's why it's so bad. You know, the other thing is funny. So you agree about that? The other thing that's funny is that, and you hear this about open enrollment. Well, their kids, they aren't fitting in or whatever, and people move for those reasons. The kids that open enroll often aren't performing well in the public school. It's not working for them. And this local school, real proud of, has an 88% proficiency rate.
Wow.
And they've got a bunch of kids who weren't performing that made a decision to come to school. So they don't. It's not like they start with the sort of the myth, and it's true of some Catholic education, high school. It's like, well, they get all the good students. No wonder they're so good. But you know, they're often in the smaller community. These are kids that public education isn't working for. Homeschooling is not the best option, so they end up there, and they're performing well.
I did homeschooling my senior year.
Yeah.
I went from Columbus Public Schools. They were
Yeah.
rough schools.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
from the Columbus Public School system, had a couple years when they were doing busing. They kept redistricting, and they were
Yeah.
busing us out of our communities into poor performing communities.
Mhm.
So my parents were able to put us into a West Side private school. But
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's a huge issue. I mean,
Yeah, it
it's,
is. Well, good.
It's huge.
Yeah, I think that's super important, and it's real timely, and we kept Melissa out of the controversy that seems to be engulfing Bucyrus, this whole issue of the Second Amendment.
Why did you keep me out of that? People are going to want to know.
Yeah, I know. Well, we already did. We already took care of it. We already lackeed down. We're doing what the state law said. So here, City Council passed, gosh, I want to say 6 weeks ago, the conformance with the state law. So we repealed all of our local ordinances.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
We'll introduce you to our law director. I think he is proud of his efforts and is not really taken. It's more the see. My worry about it is the state legislature, controlled by Republicans, really acting to stop liberal suburbs from outlawing like the normal safety protection use of a gun. So that's really where the law came from. And it's funny how it's the real extreme Second Amendment, the real like
Would you think
peel
that,
my dead fingers off my
but
bumper
I don't
sticker,
think that's
that group,
extreme. I don't think
No,
that's
I
extreme.
don't. I mean, I'm just saying that is the extreme point of view, though, in terms of no alteration to Second Amendment and all that stuff. The General Assembly passed a law that was pro-gun ownership, protecting from local governments that would go crazy and pass silly, more liberal stuff, and then that has been, it's whipped around, and in Bucyrus, it's
Can we
don't
talk
become
about that?
Yeah, go for it. We can talk all night. Yeah, go ahead.
I think what's happening in Bucyrus right now, this is all politically motivated.
Oh, sure it
because
is. Yeah.
We've been very successful in Marion County and Wyandotte County with these resolutions. You and I both know a resolution isn't a legally binding. It's a symbolic. It's a symbolic recognition of the people's wishes. Okay. I don't understand why they are rebuking this at the levels that they are. I mean, every other county, Morrow County's embraced it, Marion County's embraced it, what's going on in Crawford County? Is this like an anti-Kurt movement instead?
No, Honkhauser, I don't think so. I think over here it's let's get in alignment with the state law, so that I think the two reasons were so we don't get sued.
But you know, I mean, we know that.
I don't know. I didn't. It's funny on that issue. Now I'm gonna listen. Like, now I picked a bad time to become such a lollipop or whatever, such a pansy. But I didn't say a word on the issue.
Were you there that night? I don't
was
remember.
there. What night?
The night that we presented. And
I don't go over to
Okay.
Bucyrus. I stay out. I've got enough headaches
Okay.
here. But when we passed it, I didn't say anything about it. I did sign the ordinance. It passed unanimously. So in Galleon City, we are in conformance with and we didn't really have time that the week or so ago when we had the candidates night to really get into that. You know, what is if the commissioners support the moratorium? Not even sure what, that's not quite the right word, but support the sanctuary county thing. What do you do to this southeast part of the county that already said we're gonna follow, we're not gonna nullify the state law?
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting. It's fun to see that because it is really a nullification, where locals are saying, "No, man, we don't care what the state law says."
What do you
Now
think?
you want to get really mad? My least favorite. She's not my girlfriend. Everybody in town seems to hate her. Rita. Now we could stay on here for a half hour.
I don't know.
Because that's
You're
the
talking about Rita
regional
taxes?
income tax.
Yeah, your taxes.
Man, I hate
Yeah.
her. I mean,
Taxes.
I never even
Well, at
met
first
her.
I was like,
I
is
never
he-
met her, and everybody hates Rita.
I'm like, is he talking about the taxes, or is he
Yeah.
getting ready to unveil something?
No, I'm just saying they're real similar philosophically. The state government coming in and saying, it's Kasichism, coming in and saying, we're going to control the income tax, we're going to make everybody pay us, and then we'll reimburse you. Well, somebody was hosed by the change in the local government fund. I'm pretty, you'll bring out that skepticism that you see in some of the gun rights people. It's like, wow, I've been burned once on this.
What?
So I'm really skeptical about this approach that state government has. And I'm really convinced that you would be against that. You get the chance to do it where they come in and tell local government, local communities.
But I think
how
that
it's
was the
gonna be.
long-term. I
Yeah.
think that was the long-term plan from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Was for all, in the same way that the federal government is
Yeah.
involved in state level. I really do, and I know you probably think I'm a conspiracy theorist for thinking that, but I think that they were slowly chipping away at that anyway with the Kasich administration.
Yeah, they're you wouldn't see him concealed carry probably. Yeah, it's really interesting how that will work. But just for your information, over the next month, that ship has sailed in galleon. Whether we're going to fall off the edge of the flat Earth or not, we are conforming with Columbus, and that's kind of how that's going to be. But it is in a little county of 40,000 people. You've got that is a super hot issue over there, and I encourage you, if you can ride that wave, that's good enough, because they'll vote and they're sincere. I think that's true of the people who will watch this too, Melissa. So that's why I'm really glad that you came over and agreed to do this. Because
now I'm going to have to drive home and think about your amendment, your
it is
constitutional amendment that you have an issue with.
I'm a sort of like a brain teaser kind of guy, so I'll do that. If you came in here to what we affectionately call the barber shop, where people come in and talk, it's fun to stir that up. And that, if we do this again or whatever, it'd be fun to talk about human services and welfare programs.
Yes, I would like to talk about that.
Because I am the cross current guy, and I've been around it for a long time, and I think a lot of Republicans, particularly a lot of conservative Republicans, not like lumping you in there, have knee-jerk reactions to reforming human service programs. And
you know what I'm worried about? There's a good lady. She works in Crawford County. Her name is Robin Hildebrand. I believe.
I talked to her today. Yeah.
And she 2 years ago really helped me to understand the benefit cliff in the state of Ohio.
Oh yeah, sure.
So, I mean, talk about somebody that could there's so much we could do, so many things we could be fixing, including a migration plan to help people slowly get off of subsidies into full self-sustainability. But no politicians want to talk about this because they're afraid of what it would look like for being very wealthy, most of them are, to discuss the fact that 52% of the state budget is put into entitlement programs, Medicaid expansion. Like, nobody wants to touch that issue, but it's not sustainable where it is right now.
Yeah, next dollar earned is what I call that thing. Robin and I worked together for a long time. She's as we all evolve, she's really evolved and understands the need for different human service programs and use those to build a capability and not dependence.
No, she gets
create
it.
opportunity
She
and
gets
not
it.
dependence. So it's fun to see her and her in her retirement world doing that.
Is she retired now?
Yeah, she's retired. She is helping our newly formed Port Authority.
Huh.
And I was talking with her today. It's common, Robin and I. You never have a short conversation. So like
She
tonight,
was huge. She was
yeah, she knows
hugely
what
helpful.
she's.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's gonna be mad. Did you hear that? Melissa said you're huge, Robin. Oh my.
She was huge in educating about the benefit cliff.
No,
and
it's really
federal
benefit
policy
cliff.
and
That's
state
the
policy.
same thing. It really is, and I think my since we opened up that can of worms, children's services and all that is so vital to every county, big, large, every weak family, fragile family. But the food stamp program is one that's real interesting. That we might argue and disagree about.
I feel like we would. What?
We would. Well, if you want people to work, to get food stamps, they should work. Well, most of them do.
Yeah, I
and
know.
Most people don't recognize that. The majority, they do have a job. It may not be the kind of job that we have, but so the other thing is, in this county, it would be the largest employer. If you assembled everyone who is on SNAP, you assembled them to a work crew, it would be the county's largest employer in its history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you tell me, and this is why I was against it when I had the job, and it was cool in the welfare director's world, but it wasn't cool anywhere else. Is that this was my idea? You had 4,000 people. We'd have 2,000 of them go pick up all the litter in the county.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd have 2,000 people take all that litter and spread it back around so that the 2,000, there's just no public works. It was hard for me to wrap around how you would put those people to work in this public service realm.
Mm.
So as you get down to that,
Mm-hmm.
who's going to supervise that many people?
Mm-hmm.
So that in a nutshell is why I think it's important. And then the other thing, here's the other teaser. It's a long drive. You'll drive past a lot of farms. Keep your eye on the road.
Okay.
And that is clearly the biggest beneficiary to food stamps is a recipient.
Yeah.
Who's the second biggest beneficiary?
The people, the grocery stores, the place where they're
One step back up the food chain, and you're 100% right.
those who manage the program. The farmers.
Because about a third of the food is purchased through food stamps, and that allows producers to produce at the maximum production. I learned that from one of my favorite welfare department co-workers who was a farmer. Daddy is a township trustee, and we've talked a lot about that, and she understood that right away because she was a farm kid. She knew how that leveled out their production. So it's kind of interesting.
I have to share this
So
personal story.
That's
this is a very,
stamps.
very personal
All right,
story.
this is. Go ahead.
We're going back to, let's see, 2015, 2016-ish.
Yeah.
We had a completely flat year in business. So we had a client that stiffed us on about $300,000, okay?
Wow.
In fact, it's part of one of the attack ads against me where they say, Melissa Ackison was on a tax payment plan. Who the hell hasn't been on a tax payment plan? Small business owners, that's not uncommon. So we didn't file bankruptcy. We had to liquidate assets, make our payroll, do what we had to do to keep going.
Yeah.
But that year, by this time, Obamacare was in place. The Affordable Care Act was in place.
Yeah.
That year when I called in to report our income, we had a completely flat year in business. That means flat year, not bankrupt, not negative.
Right.
My family and I, now keep in mind, I know the healthcare markets very well. I purchased them in that private sector all across the United States for large billion-dollar companies, manufacturing, and I had to purchase private healthcare as a small business owner.
Gotcha.
So the year that we had a flat year in business, we go to call in for our insurance, and the woman says, "You qualify for Medicaid." And I said, "No, I don't." I said, I own a home in Florida, we just had a bad year in business. Nope. When the Affordable Care Act was introduced, and the exclusion was everything's based on income. So my children, they had a medical condition that I passed along to them, a genetic condition. I'm panic stricken at this point. I had my Obamacare insurance the years prior. I spent $40,000 out of pocket, had insurance I couldn't use anywhere without a penalty. Fast forward to the year that I have a flat year. my family and I, to get the children insurance, literally had to go to an Ohio Job and Family Services office.
Yeah.
We sit down. There's a person across from us, and he says, you know, you've got a baby, you've got this, you've got that. He starts tallying up all these subsidies, and I look at my husband, and I said, we just pulled up in an S-Class Benz, you know, I'm not, you know, that something doesn't feel right about this. You're offering me WIC, you're offering me subsidies, you're offering cash. I'm not here for any of that. I'm only here because the government is telling me that for my children to receive medical care,
I gotta go through.
I've got to go through you guys to do this. So I started making videos about the subject. This is one of the reasons I was flown to Washington to talk to the president. And in my video, I say, somebody's got to help me here. All the years I'm making a 6-figure income, busting my, you know what, to make ends meet, I'm getting bent over by the governor or by the government, losing my assets to make copays, payments, monthly deductibles, a $15,000 deductible. Yet the year that I had a flat year in business and income qualifies my family for Medicaid and forces us into Medicaid, and it's the best insurance that we've ever had in our entire lives. No wonder people don't work to get over a certain income amount, and that's not an uncommon story. It's why we are where we are in the state with our, I mean, this we can't sustain this.
You know, a mother of 4, 2 adults, 2 children, a husband.
A business.
And a business, he's probably like, okay, I love my wife, but she better get home. I've had these kids all day. They want to see the mom. Really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it. Great time.
Yeah.
I wish you luck. Lot of hard work. Lot of hard work to be done. I'm gonna stay neutral until I'm totally. My attempts to contact your primary opponent are exhausted.
Okay.
We'll get back in touch.
Sure.
I hope this goes really well. Hey, thanks a lot, Melissa. I appreciate it. And thanks for everybody for watching, and share the video. We need to get our candidates known in this part of the district. Thanks and good night.